200 Taliban fighters killed, 58 Pakistani soldiers slain, airstrikes on Kabul, an attempted assassination, and the looming threat of all-out war. So, what on earth is going on between Pakistan and Afghanistan? Why are the two countries on the brink of war? And is there a way back from the edge? Let's take a deep dive to try and decipher the situation. On Thursday, October 9th, Pakistan's defense minister gave a speech in parliament.
Enough is enough. सर ये अब बर्दाश्त नहीं होगा. हमें यकसू होके मिनहसुल कौम जो है जवाब देना पड़ेगा इन लोगों को जो उनको पनाहगाहें मुयस्सर करते हैं, चाहे वो हमारी सरजमीन पे हैं या वो अफगानिस्तान की सरजमीन के ऊपर है.
Just hours later, explosions took place in Kabul and several other locations in Afghanistan.
Afghanistan explosion heard in Afghanistan's Kabul.
The target of the Kabul strikes was Noor Wali Masood, the emir of the Tehrik-e-Taliban Pakistan or Pakistani Taliban. The TTP is a UN-designated terrorist group. It has been designated one by Pakistan, the US, the UK, China, Russia, Iran, and a few other nations. Afghanistan's Taliban, however, do not consider the TTP a terror group. For the rulers of Kabul, the TTP is a brotherly entity, and that is Islamabad's biggest problem. The TTP was officially formed in 2007, but its roots go back to 2001, to the US war in Afghanistan. The US was devastating Afghanistan in its hunt for Osama bin Laden. Hundreds of fighters from both Al-Qaeda and the Taliban fled the country to escape the American bombardment. Many chose to cross the porous Afghanistan-Pakistan border. This border is known as the Durand Line. It was drawn by the British during colonial times by an official named Mortimer Durand. Most Afghans don't recognize this border because it was drawn by colonizers. They cut right through the historical homeland of the major Afghan ethnic group, the Pashtuns or Pathans. On Pakistan's side of the border, you have the Pathan majority province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And up till 2018, you also had a Pathan enclave there. It was known as the Federally Administered Tribal Areas or FATA. The FATA region was nominally under Pakistan's control, but in reality, it was a semi-autonomous region governed by the local Pashtun or Pathan tribes. Pakistan's army hadn't exercised control in the FATA since the country's independence, meaning the region was extremely porous. Pathans or Pashtuns on both sides of the Durand Line would cross it freely. Militants from Afghanistan took advantage of this situation back in 2001 to escape the American invasion. And this set off a chain of events that resulted in the formation of the TTP. The US conducted airstrikes in the FATA to kill Al-Qaeda operatives. Washington also pressured Islamabad to join its so-called war on terror. So, by 2002, the Pakistani army was encroaching on the historically autonomous region to help the US war effort. Collateral damage from American attacks, the incursion by Pakistani troops. Both these things bred resentment among the Pathans of the FATA. They organized into multiple armed factions to push both the US and Pakistan out. Eventually, in 2007, many of these groups merged to form the TTP. The TTP was made up of Pathans or Pashtuns like the Afghan Taliban. They were armed and trained by both the Taliban and Al-Qaeda militants who had fled Afghanistan. The group was also influenced by the ideology of these militants, the ideology that they brought. The result was that the TTP declared war against the Pakistani government, aiming to overthrow it and form an Islamic emirate like the one that had just collapsed in Afghanistan. The war between the TTP and Pakistan claimed thousands of lives. The TTP resorted to suicide bombings to kill Pakistani security personnel and also members of Pakistan's religious minorities. Pakistan's establishment negotiated a number of ceasefires with the TTP, but none of them held. Eventually, in 2014, the Pakistani army began an all-out offensive against the TTP called Operation Zarb-e-Azb. Over the course of about 3 years, the Pakistani army managed to almost completely eradicate the TTP presence from its soil. Islamabad managed to take firm control of the FATA. The cost was dire. About 1 million people were internally displaced during the operation. The TTP leadership was forced to flee, and this time, in a reversal of the 2001 situation, they crossed the border and set up camp in Afghanistan. To this day, Afghanistan is said to harbor TTP militants. Pakistan accuses the Afghan Taliban of turning a blind eye to the TTP's activities and allowing the group to use Afghan soil to launch attacks on Pakistan. That is what Pakistan's Defense Minister Khwaja Asif was referring to during his prescient speech. It is Pakistan's justification for regularly bombing a neighboring sovereign country. But this time, Islamabad's actions were too bold for Kabul to ignore. Afghanistan's defense ministry released this statement on Friday, the day after the strikes on Kabul. The following day, the Taliban struck back. On Saturday, October 11th, at about 10 p.m. local time, Taliban forces and allied militias attacked Pakistani positions all along the Durand line. There were clashes at Chitral, Tir, Bajor, Kurram, Angur Adda. There was also an attack at Bahram Shah in Balochistan. The following day, the Taliban government spokesperson made this statement.
تیرې شپې عملیات افغانستان اسلامي امارت له خوا نه پیل شول، هغه انتقامي عملیاتو چې د دوی د نقض د حریم ځواب وویل شو چې زموږ حریم دوی نقض کړی او دا بریدونه په ټول امتداد د کرښې کې اجرا شول. او د موږ د معلوماتو له مخې 100 نه زیاتې پوستې تصرف شوي دي د مجاهدینو له خوا نه او 58 د دوی نظامیان له منځه تللي دي، د 150 په شاوخوا کې ټپیان لري او تر 9 پورې زموږ مجاهدین هم شهیدان شوي دي او 14 نه تر 13 پورې زخمیان لرو او د دوی وسلې او مهمات هم نیول شوي دي په امتداد د کرښې.
58 Pakistani soldiers killed, 20 border posts captured along with arms and equipment, at the loss of 9 fighters with a further 16 to 18 injured. That is what the Taliban claimed when the dust settled. But Pakistan had a very different story. Pakistan says that they neutralized 200 Taliban and affiliated fighters. They also claim that 23 of their soldiers died, not 58 like Afghanistan had claimed. Pakistan and Afghanistan have shut all border crossings, and they have increased patrols. The situation is tense. There have been reports of sporadic clashes over the last few days, and they may keep flaring up because the underlying problem hasn't been resolved. As long as the TTP continues to operate out of Afghanistan, Pakistan will not stop its attacks, and the Afghan Taliban can't really throw their Pakistani brethren to the wolves. That could lead to widespread discontent in Afghanistan, and it may weaken the Taliban's grip on power. So the Taliban's hands are tied. Meanwhile, Islamabad may get emboldened after its offensive. Pakistan may conduct more strikes inside Afghanistan, knowing that it has the edge when it comes to conventional warfare. If a major war does break out, it is the ordinary civilians in both countries who will bear the brunt. They will be collateral damage. So for their sake, let's hope that peace prevails.